The Galactic Unity Station floated in the darkness of space like a giant silver wheel. Inside its walls, young students from 47 different species lived and learned together. They came from planets across the galaxy, all hoping to become the leaders and diplomats of tomorrow. The Interspecies Youth Academy was famous. Only the best students could enter its doors. Lyra pressed her small face against the window of the transport ship. Her large silver eyes grew wide as the station came into view. She had never seen anything so big in her whole life. Her heart beat fast with excitement and fear mixed together. She was a Villani, a species that had only recently joined the Galactic Union. Her people were known throughout the galaxy as gentle and peaceful. They were small, with soft lavender skin and delicate antennae on their heads. They did not fight. They did not argue. They simply wanted to live in peace with everyone. Lyra was the first Villani student ever sent to the academy. Her mother, a diplomat, had worked very hard to make this happen. Before Lyra left home, her mother had given her a gift. It was a crystal flower from their home garden. The petals were pale blue and glowed softly in the dark. Her mother had held her close and whispered, "Be brave, little one. Show them how beautiful our people are." Now, as Lyra walked through the academy halls for the first time, she held that crystal flower tight against her chest. Students of all shapes and sizes moved around her. Some were tall with many arms. Some floated instead of walking. Some had scales, some had fur, and some had skin that changed colors. Lyra felt very, very small. On her first day, she found her room and unpacked her few belongings. She placed the crystal flower on her small desk where she could see it when she woke up each morning. Then she went to find her first class. The trouble started before lunch. A group of Krodan students blocked her path in the hallway. Krodans were large reptilian beings with thick scales and sharp teeth. They stood twice as tall as Lyra and looked down at her with cold yellow eyes. Their leader was named Voss. He was the biggest of them all. "Look what we have here," Voss said. His voice was deep and rough. "A little Villani. I heard your species was weak, but I did not know you were this small." His friends laughed. The sound echoed in the hallway. Lyra tried to speak, but her voice came out as a whisper. "Please, I am just trying to find my class." "Just trying to find my class," Voss repeated in a high, mocking voice. The other Krodans laughed harder. "Go ahead, little prey. Run along." Lyra hurried past them, her legs shaking. She could hear their laughter following her down the hall. That was only the beginning. Every day, it got worse. The Krodans found new ways to make Lyra's life miserable. They hid her study tablets so she would be late for class. They tripped her in the meal hall so her food spilled everywhere. They called her names like prey and weakling and bug. Other students saw what was happening. Most of them looked away. Some even laughed along with the Krodans. Nobody wanted to make enemies of the biggest, strongest students in the academy. Lyra tried to report the bullying to her instructors. She went to Master Dovin, an elder teacher with gray fur and kind eyes. He listened to her story and nodded slowly. "I understand this is difficult," he said, "but you must understand, Lyra. Different species have different ways of interacting. The Krodans come from a world where strength is respected above all else. They are simply testing you, as their culture demands. You must learn to adapt." "But they are hurting me," Lyra said, her voice breaking. "Not physically," Master Dovin replied. "I am sure it will get better with time. These are just cultural adjustment issues." He sent her away with a gentle pat on the head. Lyra cried alone in her room that night. She held her crystal flower and thought about home. She thought about her mother's warm arms and the soft gardens of her planet. She wondered if she had made a terrible mistake coming here. During this time, a human student named Kim Tae-ho watched from a distance. Tae-ho was 16 years old, quiet and serious. He was one of only 3 humans at the Academy. Earth had only recently made contact with the Galactic Union, and humans were still new to the galaxy. Most species did not know what to think of them. Tai-Ho had noticed Lyra on her first day. He had seen how small and scared she looked. He had also seen how the Crodans treated her. Every day, he watched. Every day, he said nothing. He was not sure why he hesitated. Perhaps he was still trying to find his own place in this strange new world. Perhaps he was afraid of making trouble. Perhaps he told himself it was not his business. But something about Lyra reminded him of himself. When he was young, back in his small village by the sea in Korea, bigger children had bullied him too. He remembered the feeling of being small and alone and afraid. He remembered wishing someone would help. 2 weeks after Lyra arrived, something happened that changed everything. It was evening. Most students were in their rooms studying. Lyra was walking back from the library when Voss and his group surrounded her in an empty hallway. "What is this?" Voss reached down and grabbed the crystal flower from Lyra's hands. She had been carrying it with her, as she often did when she felt scared. "Please," Lyra begged. "Please give it back. It is from my mother." "From your mother?" Voss held the flower up to the light. It glowed pale blue, beautiful and delicate. "How sweet. The little prey misses her mother. Please," Lyra said again. Tears were forming in her silver eyes. Voss looked at her. Then, very slowly, he closed his large clawed hand around the crystal flower. There was a sound like breaking glass. When he opened his hand, only dust and tiny fragments remained. "Oops," Voss said. He let the pieces fall to the floor. Lyra dropped to her knees. She tried to gather the broken pieces with her small hands, but there was nothing left to save. The flower her mother had given her, the only piece of home she had, was gone. The Crodans walked away laughing. Lyra stayed on the floor, crying silently. Her tears fell onto the dust that had once been a flower. At the end of the hallway, hidden in the shadows, Tai-Ho stood watching. His hands were closed into tight fists at his sides. Something hard and cold settled in his chest, something that felt like a decision. He looked at the small lavender girl crying on the floor, and he thought about every time he had looked away, every time he had told himself it was not his problem. No more. Tomorrow, things would be different. The meal hall was loud and crowded during lunchtime. Students from dozens of species sat at long tables, eating foods from their home worlds. The air was filled with strange smells and the sound of many different languages. Lyra sat alone at a small table in the corner. She always sat alone now. Her eyes were red from crying the night before. The broken pieces of her crystal flower were wrapped in cloth and hidden in her room. She could not throw them away, even though they were dust. She was pushing her food around her plate without eating when a shadow fell over her table. "Well, well," said a familiar rough voice. "The little prey is still here." I thought maybe she would run home to her mother by now. Lyra looked up. Voss stood there with 4 of his Crodan friends. They formed a half-circle around her table, blocking any escape. Other students in the meal hall noticed and quickly looked away. Nobody wanted to get involved. "What should we do with her today?" one of the Crodans asked. "Maybe we should see if she can fly." He reached toward Lyra's antenna. Lyra closed her eyes and waited for the pain, but it never came. Instead, she heard a tray being set down on the table. She opened her eyes and saw something she did not expect. A human had sat down across from her. He was young, with black hair and dark eyes. His face was calm, showing no emotion at all. He picked up his eating utensil and began to eat his food as if nothing unusual was happening. The Crodans stared at him in confusion. "What are you doing?" Voss demanded. The human did not look up. He took another bite of his food. Then, very casually, he spoke. "Eating lunch." "This is our table now," Voss said. "Move." The human finally looked up. His eyes met Voss's eyes without any fear. "No, I am eating with my friend." Lyra's heart jumped. Friend? No one had ever called her a friend at this academy. Voss laughed. It was not a nice laugh. "Friend? You are friends with this weak little thing?" He looked at his companions. "Another weak species protecting the weakest. How fitting." "Her name is Lyra," the human said quietly, "and I think you should leave now." The meal hall had gone silent. Every student was watching. No one had ever stood up to Voss before. No one had ever been that brave or that foolish. Voss leaned down until his face was close to the human's face. His yellow eyes were cold. "Do you know who I am, little human? Do you know what I could do to you?" The human did not move back. He did not blink. He simply said, "She is eating. You are interrupting. That is rude where I come from." For a long moment, nobody moved. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut. Then Voss laughed again and stood up straight. "Fine. Keep your pet, human. We will finish this another time." He looked at Lyra with cold eyes. "Enjoy your meal, pray." The Crodons walked away. The meal hall slowly returned to normal, but everyone kept glancing at the human who had done something impossible. Lyra stared at the boy across from her. Her hands were shaking. "Why?" she whispered. "Why did you do that?" The human shrugged. "I saw what they did to your flower last night. I saw what they have been doing since you arrived." He paused. "Where I come from, we do not watch while children get hurt. But they could hurt you. Crodans are very strong." "I know. You are not afraid?" The human thought about this for a moment. "I am afraid," he admitted, "but some things are more important than being afraid." Lyra did not know what to say. No one had ever risked anything for her before, not here. "My name is Kim Tae-ho," the human said. "You can call me Tae-ho." "I am Lyra." "I know." He almost smiled. "You should eat your food. It is getting cold." From that day on, everything changed. Lyra started following Tae-ho wherever he went. At first, she kept her distance, watching him from far away like a small shadow. She was afraid that if she got too close, he would send her away. But Tae-ho never sent her away. When he noticed her following him, he simply slowed his steps so she could keep up. When she sat near him in the library, he did not tell her to leave. When she appeared at his table during meals, he just nodded and kept eating. Slowly, Lyra got braver. She started sitting closer. She started asking questions. "Tae-ho, what is Earth like?" "Green," he said. "And blue. Lots of water." "What is water like?" He looked at her with surprise. "You do not have water on your planet?" "We have moisture pools. But I have seen pictures of Earth water. It looks different. It moves. It does move. We call the big moving water the ocean. I grew up next to an ocean." "What is it like? The ocean?" Tae-ho was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer than usual. "It is big. So big you cannot see where it ends. When I was young, I would sit on the rocks and watch the waves. The sound would make me calm." "Do you miss it?" "Yes." He did not say more, but Lyra could see the sadness in his eyes. She learned more about him as the days passed. He had grown up in a small village in a place called Korea. His parents had died when he was very young. His grandmother had raised him alone. She was still back on Earth, waiting for him to come home. When he was a child, other children had been cruel to him too. They called him names because he was quiet. They pushed him because he was different. He knew what it felt like to be small and alone. That was why he had helped her, Lyra realized. He remembered. The other students at the academy began to notice the strange friendship. They whispered to each other in the hallways. "The human sits with the Villani every day. Why would he do that? What does he gain? Humans are strange. I heard they adopt animals on their planet just to take care of them. Maybe he thinks she is a pet." But Tae-ho did not care what they said, and slowly, Lyra stopped caring too. One evening, the Academy's central computer made a note in its observation files. It read, "Human student Kim Tae-ho shows unusual protective behavior toward Vallani student Lyra. This behavior does not match standard predictions for new species integration. Flagging for continued observation." The computer did not understand what it was seeing. It could not understand. Humans were new to the galaxy. The other species had centuries of data about each other. They knew how Crodans behaved, how Vallani behaved, how 100 other species thought and acted. But humans were a mystery, and sometimes mysteries could change everything. 3 weeks passed, and Lyra was no longer the same frightened girl who had arrived at the academy. She still sat with Tae-ho at every meal. She still followed him to the library after classes. But now she talked more. She laughed sometimes. Her silver eyes had started to shine again. Tae-ho taught her many things about humans and Earth. He showed her how to play a simple game with small stones. Humans called it a game of luck and skill. Lyra was not very good at it, but she loved trying. He shared music from his planet with her. Human music was strange to Lyra's ears at first. It used sounds she had never heard before, but there was something beautiful in it, something that made her feel warm inside. "This song is from my home," Tae-ho told her one day. They were sitting in a quiet corner of the station's observation deck, looking at the stars. "My grandmother used to sing it to me when I was small." "What do the words mean?" "They are about a person who is far from home. They are looking at the moon and thinking about the people they love." He paused. "The song says that no matter how far apart people are, they look at the same sky." Lyra thought about this. "Your grandmother sounds very wise." "She is. She raised me alone after my parents died. She taught me everything important." "Like what?" Tae-ho was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "She taught me that being strong does not mean being big or powerful. She taught me that true strength is choosing to be kind when it would be easier to be cruel." Lyra looked at him with her large silver eyes. "Is that why you helped me?" "Yes, and because I remembered what it was like to be alone." Their friendship did not go unnoticed. Voss and his Crodans still watched from a distance. They had stopped bothering Lyra directly since Tae-ho had stood up to them. But Voss's yellow eyes followed her everywhere. He had not forgotten. He was waiting. However, something else was happening too. The other 2 human students at the academy had noticed Tae-ho's friendship with Lyra. One day, a girl with long black hair approached their table during lunch. She was tall for a human, with sharp eyes and a confident walk. "Mind if I sit?" she asked. Tae-ho looked up. "Go ahead." The girl sat down and smiled at Lyra. "Hello, I am Park Yuna. I have seen you around." Lyra's antenna twitched nervously. "Hello. Do not be afraid. I am a friend." Yuna looked at Tae-ho. "I saw what you did for her a few weeks ago, standing up to those Crodans. That took courage." Tae-ho shrugged. "It was the right thing to do." "I agree. That is why I wanted to introduce myself." She turned back to Lyra. "Tae-ho is not the only human who looks after people. We have a saying on Earth. When someone messes with one of us, they mess with all of us." A few days later, another human joined them. His name was Cho Seok. He was younger than Yuna and Tae-ho, only 15 years old. He had a quick smile and talked a lot, which was very different from Tae-ho's quiet nature. "So, you are the famous Lyra," Seok said when he met her. "The whole station is talking about you and Tae-ho." "They are?" Lyra asked, worried. "Do not worry. It is good talk. Everyone is confused about why humans protect people who are not humans. They do not understand it." "Why do you?" Lyra asked. Why do humans do this? Seok and Yuna looked at each other. They both seemed surprised by the question. I do not know, Yuna admitted. It is just what we do. When we see someone being hurt, we want to help. It feels wrong to do nothing. On my home world, Lyra said slowly, the strong take what they want. The weak must accept it. That is how most of the galaxy works. Strength means power. Power means you deserve to rule. That sounds terrible, Seok said. It is just how things are. Lyra looked at the three humans. But you are different. You protect people who cannot protect you back. You gain nothing from helping me. I do not understand why. Teho spoke for the first time. Maybe that is the point. Maybe doing something good without expecting anything back is what makes it good. Lyra thought about this for a long time. The three humans began to form a quiet circle around Lyra. They did not make a big show of it. They simply made sure she was never alone. One of them was always nearby in the hallways. One of them always sat with her during classes. Other students noticed this strange behavior. They talked about it late at night in their rooms. The humans travel in a pack. They have adopted the Villani girl as one of their own. But she is not human. She is not even from a strong species. Why would they want her? Maybe humans are not as smart as we thought. But one person saw things differently. Master Corvin was one of the oldest teachers at the academy. He was a Valorian, a species known for their love of knowledge and history. He had lived for over 300 years and had seen many things, but he had never seen anything quite like the humans. He began to study them. He read every report about Earth that the Galactic Union had collected. He watched videos of human history, and what he found made him very thoughtful. Humans were strange. They formed bonds with animals that served no purpose. They adopted children who were not related to them. They built monuments to remember people who had died saving strangers. On Earth, there was a word for this behavior: compassion. It meant caring about others even when there was no benefit to yourself. Master Corvin had never seen a species like this before. In the galaxy, compassion was considered a weakness. The strong survived by taking from the weak. That was the natural way of things. But humans did not follow this rule. They seemed to believe that helping others made everyone stronger. It was a strange idea, perhaps even a dangerous one. While Master Corvin studied, Voss was making plans of his own. He had been humiliated when the humans stood up to him. His friends had lost respect for him. Other students whispered that he was afraid of a species half his size. This could not stand. And then he learned something very interesting. Lyra was not just any Villani girl. Her mother was Ambassador Vela, one of the most important diplomats in the Galactic Union. The Villani were new to galactic politics, but they controlled trade routes that many species wanted access to. If something were to happen to Lyra, if she were hurt badly enough, it would send a message. It would show the galaxy that the Villani were weak, that they could not protect even their own children. Voss smiled as he thought about this. He would not just get revenge. He would gain political power for his family. All he needed was the right moment. And that moment was coming soon. The alarm started screaming at midnight. Red lights flashed in every hallway of the station. A calm voice spoke through the speakers. Emergency drill. All students report to designated safe zones. This is not a real emergency. Repeat, this is a drill. Students poured out of their rooms, half asleep and confused. Teachers directed them toward different parts of the station. In the chaos, it was hard to keep track of anyone. This was exactly what Voss had been waiting for. Lyra was walking toward her safe zone when a strong hand grabbed her arm and pulled her into a dark side hallway. She tried to scream, but another hand covered her mouth. Before she knew what was happening, she was being carried deeper into the station, into sections that students were not supposed to enter. When they finally stopped, Lyra found herself in an abandoned storage room. Old equipment and broken machines filled the space. The only light came from a few flickering panels on the walls. Voss stood in front of her with 4 other Crodons. They formed a circle around her. There was no way to escape. "Hello, little prey," Voss said. His yellow eyes glowed in the dim light. "Did you think your human pets would always be there to protect you?" Lyra's whole body was shaking. "What do you want?" "I want to send a message. Your mother thinks she is so important. She thinks the Villani can play with the big species now." Voss stepped closer. "I am going to show her that her people will never be anything but prey." The other Crodons laughed. Lyra's hand went to her wrist. There, hidden under her sleeve, was a simple bracelet. Tae-ho had given it to her 2 weeks ago. "It is a human tradition," he had told her. "We give these to people we want to protect. If you are ever in danger, press this button. I will come." She had thought it was a sweet but useless gift. What could one human do against the dangers of the galaxy? Now, with shaking fingers, she pressed the button. Far across the station, Tae-ho's communicator buzzed. He looked at the signal and his face went pale. "Lyra," he said. He did not wait for the drill to end. He did not stop to think about the danger. He simply ran. Yuna saw him running and chased after him. "Tae-ho! What is happening?" "Lyra is in trouble. Section 7. That is the abandoned area. Students are not allowed there." "I know." Yuna did not ask any more questions. She just ran faster. Seok found them a minute later, breathing hard. "I saw you running. What is wrong?" "Lyra," was all Tae-ho said. The 3 humans ran through the empty hallways of Section 7. They followed the signal from Lyra's bracelet until they reached a storage room with a broken door. Inside, they saw Lyra surrounded by 5 Crodans. Voss was saying something to her. His clawed hand was raised, ready to strike. "Stop!" Tae-ho's voice echoed through the room. Everyone turned to look at him. For a moment, nobody moved. 3 humans stood at the door. 5 Crodons stood around one small alien girl. The odds were not good. Voss laughed. It was a cruel sound. "Look at this. The pets have come to save their friend." He shook his head slowly. "Do you know how foolish you are? We are Crodans. We are twice your size. Our scales can stop a blade. What do you think you can do against us?" Tae-ho walked into the room. His steps were slow and steady. His face showed no fear. "Let her go," he said quietly. "Or what?" Tae-ho looked at Voss with eyes that had gone cold. "You do not want to know what humans do to people who hurt children." Voss smiled. "I think I do." He swung his massive arm at Tae-ho. What happened next surprised everyone in that room. Tae-ho did not try to block the blow. He could not. It was too strong. Instead, he moved to the side at the last moment and let the arm pass by him. Then he moved forward and hit Voss in the throat as hard as he could. The Crodon made a choking sound and stepped back. "Get them!" Voss shouted. The room exploded into chaos. 4 Crodons attacked 3 humans. The fight should have been over in seconds. The Crodons were bigger, stronger, and covered in natural armor. The humans had none of these advantages, but the humans had something else. They fought like nothing the Crodans had ever seen. They did not fight to win. They fought to survive. They fought like animals protecting their young. Tae-ho took a hit that should have broken his ribs. He fell to the ground, gasping for air. Then he got back up. Yuna was thrown against the wall. Blood ran down her face from a cut on her forehead. She got back up. Seok was hit so hard that he flew across the room. He lay still for a moment. Then he got back up. Every time they fell, they got back up. The Crodans did not understand. They had fought many species. When other creatures were hurt, they stayed down. They surrendered. They accepted defeat. These humans would not stay down. Tae-ho fought his way through the chaos until he reached Lyra. He put himself between her and the Crodans, using his own body as a shield. "Run!" he told her. I cannot leave you! Run! Find help! Go! A Krodan grabbed Tae-ho from behind and threw him to the ground. He tried to get up, but his body was too damaged. He could only crawl. Still, he crawled toward Lyra. He would not stop. He would never stop. Then the station security arrived. The doors burst open. Officers in armor rushed in and separated the fighters. The Krodans were pulled away. The humans were helped to their feet. Tae-ho could barely stand. His face was swollen. His clothes were torn and bloody, but he was still standing in front of Lyra, still trying to protect her. The security officers looked at the scene in confusion. 3 small humans had fought 5 Krodans. The humans were badly hurt, but they were not beaten. Somehow, impossibly, they had held their ground. One officer noticed the cameras in the corners of the room. They were old cameras, left over from when this section was still in use. But they were still recording. Everything that had happened in this room had been captured. As the officers led everyone away, Lyra held Tae-ho's hand. His fingers were broken and bloody, but he squeezed her hand gently. "Are you okay?" he asked her. Lyra started to cry. He was beaten and bleeding, and his first question was about her. "I am okay," she whispered. "Because of you." Tae-ho tried to smile. Then his legs gave out and he fell into darkness. Within hours, the recording from that storage room had spread beyond the academy. It spread to other stations. It spread to other planets. It spread across the entire galaxy. Everyone saw the same thing. 3 young humans fighting 5 larger opponents to protect 1 small alien girl. They saw the humans fall and get back up. They saw them refuse to surrender. They saw them willing to die for someone who was not even their own species. The galaxy had never seen anything like it, and the galaxy would never forget. The video spread like fire across the galaxy. Within 1 day, billions of beings on thousands of planets had watched the footage from that storage room. They watched 3 humans fight 5 Krodans. They watched the humans fall down and get back up. They watched them refuse to give up even when they were bleeding and broken. And they watched a young human crawl across the floor, trying to reach a small alien girl, even when his body could no longer stand. Every species reacted differently. The Krodans were embarrassed and angry. Their leaders tried to say that the video did not show the full story, but no one believed them. The evidence was too clear. The Villani were shocked. In their entire history, no other species had ever protected them. They were always the weak ones, the prey. Now a species they had never met before had bled for one of their children. Other species across the galaxy argued about what they had seen. "This is insane. Why would anyone risk their life for a stranger?" They were outnumbered and outmatched. Any logical species would have run away. Is this what humans call honor? No, I think they call it love. On 100 different worlds, the same question was asked. What kind of species would do this? In the medical bay of the Galactic Unity Station, Tae-ho lay in a healing pod. His body was badly damaged. 3 broken ribs, a cracked arm bone, internal bleeding. The doctor said he would heal, but it would take time. Lyra sat beside his bed every hour she was allowed. She would not leave. She held his uninjured hand and watched his face while he slept. On the 2nd day, a visitor arrived. The woman was tall and elegant, with soft lavender skin and large silver eyes. She looked like an older version of Lyra. She wore the formal robes of a galactic ambassador. "Mother," Lyra said, jumping to her feet. Ambassador Vela embraced her daughter. For a long moment, they simply held each other. No words were needed. Then the ambassador looked at the human boy in the healing pod. She had seen the video many times. She had watched this young stranger fight and bleed for her child. "This is him?" she asked softly. "Yes, this is Tae-ho." Ambassador Vela moved closer to the bed. She studied his face, his bandaged hands, his broken body. "Has he woken up?" A few times. He always asks about me first. He asks if I am safe. The ambassador closed her eyes. When she opened them again, they were wet with tears. At that moment, Taeho's eyes opened. He saw a strange woman standing beside his bed and tried to sit up. Pain shot through his body and he fell back with a groan. "Do not move," Lyra said quickly. "You are still healing." Taeho looked from Lyra to the ambassador. His mind was slow from the medication, but he understood. "You are Lyra's mother," he said. "I am." The ambassador's voice was thick with emotion. "I am Ambassador Vela of the Vellani people, and I have come to thank you." "Thank me?" "You protected my daughter when no one else would. You fought for her. You were willing to die for her." A tear ran down her lavender cheek. "In 300 years of galactic diplomacy, I have never seen another species bleed for a child that was not their own." Taeho was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Is she safe?" The ambassador let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "You are lying here broken and bruised, and your first question is still about her." "Is she safe?" Taeho asked again. "Yes, because of you, because of your friends." The ambassador took his hand gently. "Human Kim Taeho, I do not have the words to thank you enough. My people do not have the words. What you did was something we did not believe was possible. Anyone would have done the same." "No." The ambassador shook her head firmly. "They would not have. That is what makes you extraordinary." Word of the ambassador's visit spread quickly. More visitors came. Officials from the academy, representatives from other species. News reporters who wanted to tell the story of the humans who fought for a stranger. Taeho did not like the attention. He answered their questions with short words and asked them to leave him alone. He said he had not done anything special. He said anyone with a heart would have done the same. But the galaxy knew better. The political effects of the video were massive. The Krodan government was forced to apologize publicly. Voss and his friends were expelled from the academy and sent home in disgrace. His family lost power and influence. Earth's reputation in the galaxy changed overnight. Before, humans were seen as primitive newcomers. They were small, weak, and had only recently learned to travel between stars. Many species looked down on them. Now, every species looked at humans with new eyes. They may be small, but they do not give up. They protect those who cannot protect themselves. They are loyal beyond reason. Maybe there is something we can learn from them. Requests began arriving at the academy from across the galaxy. Parents of alien children wanted humans to watch over their sons and daughters. They trusted humans to protect the vulnerable. Master Corvin presented his research on human history to the Academy Council. He showed them videos of human wars. He showed them stories of human heroes. He showed them a pattern that repeated again and again throughout human history. They protect, he told the council. It is not a strategy. It is not a calculation. It is a compulsion. When they see someone in danger, they move to help. They cannot stop themselves. That sounds like a weakness, one council member said. Does it? Master Corvin replied. Look at what 3 of them did against 5 Krodans. Look at how the galaxy has reacted to their actions. A species that protects others builds bonds that cannot be broken. They create loyalty that lasts forever. He paused and looked around the room. We have always believed that the strong survive by taking from the weak. But perhaps we were wrong. Perhaps the truly strong survive by making others want to stand beside them. Back in the medical bay, Taeho was finally able to sit up on his own. Lyra sat beside him, as she always did. She was holding a small box in her hands. I have something for you, she said. What is it? She opened the box. Inside, on a bed of soft cloth, was a new crystal flower. It was smaller than her first one, but it glowed with the same soft blue light. My mother brought it from home, Lyra explained. She said our people want you to have it. It is the highest honor we can give. Tejo looked at the flower. His eyes were soft. I cannot take this. It is too precious. You gave me something more precious. You gave me hope. Lyra placed the box in his hands. Please, it would make me happy. Tejo looked at the crystal flower for a long moment. Then he looked at Lyra. Okay, he said quietly. I will keep it forever. Lyra smiled. It was the brightest smile she had ever smiled. Far away, on a small planet by the edge of the galaxy, an old woman sat in a simple house by the sea. She was watching a news report on her screen. The report showed a young man with black hair and dark eyes fighting against impossible odds to protect a small alien girl. The old woman touched the screen with wrinkled fingers. My boy, she whispered, you have your father's heart. And she smiled through her tears. 1 month passed. Tejo left the healing pod and returned to his normal life at the academy. His body had healed, but some marks remained. A thin scar ran across his jaw where a Croton claw had cut him. His right hand ached when it was cold. These were the prices he had paid for protecting Lyra. He did not mind the scars. They reminded him that he had done something that mattered. Everything at the academy was different now. The teachers had created new rules against bullying. They studied human schools on Earth and copied their methods. Now, every act of cruelty was taken seriously. No more excuses about cultural differences. No more ignoring the suffering of the weak. Students who had been bullied before began to speak up. They told their stories. They asked for help. And this time, help came. At the center of this change was Lyra. The small lavender girl who had once been too scared to speak was becoming a voice for others. With Yuna's help, she started a support group for students who felt alone and afraid. They met once a week in a quiet room and shared their experiences. You do not have to be strong, Lyra told them. You just have to keep going, and you do not have to keep going alone. Word of the group spread. More and more students came. Species that had never talked to each other before sat side by side and discovered they had the same fears, the same hopes, the same pain. The Academy Council gave Lyra an award for her work. She was the youngest student ever to receive it. When she walked up to accept the medal, her legs were shaking, but her voice was clear. I was once the most scared person on this station, she said. I thought I was alone. I thought no one cared. Then 3 humans showed me something I had never seen before. They showed me that kindness is stronger than cruelty. They showed me that courage is not about being big or powerful. It is about choosing to do what is right, even when you are afraid. She looked at Tejo in the audience. He was sitting between Yuna and Siak, looking uncomfortable with all the attention. I am not a human, Lyra continued. I cannot fight like they do. But I can do something else. I can speak for those who cannot speak for themselves. I can be the voice they need. The room was silent. Then slowly the applause began. It grew louder and louder until it filled the whole hall. That night, Tejo received a message on his communicator. It was an official notice from the Galactic Youth Council. He had been selected for a commendation. He was the first human ever to receive this honor. The ceremony was held a week later. Leaders from dozens of species came to watch. Ambassador Vela presented the medal herself. Human Kim Tejo, she said, you showed the galaxy something it had forgotten. You showed us that true strength is not about domination or power. It is about protecting those who cannot protect themselves. On behalf of the Galactic Youth Council, I thank you. Tejo accepted the medal and said a few short words of thanks. He did not enjoy giving speeches. He would rather be anywhere else. But as he walked back to his seat, he noticed something strange. In the far corner of the room, standing alone in the shadows, was Voss. The Crowdan had returned to the station 2 weeks ago. His family had lost too much influence to fight his expulsion, but they had managed to get him enrolled in a different program. He was no longer a student of the academy, but he lived on the station while waiting for a transport home. He had not spoken to anyone since his return. He walked the halls alone, his head down, avoiding eye contact. The students who had once feared him now ignored him completely. After the ceremony, Tejo went to find Lyra. He found her talking with Yuna and Siak in the garden area. "Did you see Voss?" Siak asked. "I cannot believe he had the courage to show his face here." "He looked different," Yuna said. "Smaller somehow." Lyra was quiet. She looked out at the artificial stars projected on the garden ceiling. "I want to talk to him," she said. Everyone stared at her. "What?" Siak said. "Lyra, he tried to hurt you. He destroyed your mother's flower. Why would you want to talk to him?" "Because I need to," Lyra said simply. Tejo studied her face. "Are you sure?" "Yes." "Then I will go with you." "No." Lyra shook her head. "I need to do this alone." She found Voss on the observation deck an hour later. He was sitting by himself, looking out at the stars. His large body seemed smaller than before, hunched over like he was carrying a heavy weight. Lyra walked up to him and sat down nearby. Not too close, but close enough to talk. Voss did not look at her. "Are you here to gloat?" "No." "Then why are you here?" Lyra was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I wanted to tell you something." Voss finally turned his head. His yellow eyes were dull and tired. "Tell me what?" "I forgive you." The words hung in the air between them. Voss stared at her like she had grown a second head. "You forgive me?" His voice was rough. "I broke your crystal flower. I called you prey. I tried to hurt you to send a message to your mother, and you forgive me?" "Yes." "Why?" "I do not understand. I do not deserve forgiveness." Lyra looked at him with her large silver eyes. "Tejo taught me something. He taught me that holding on to hatred makes you smaller, but letting go of it makes you strong." Voss turned away. His hands were clenched into fists on his knees. "On my world, we do not forgive, we do not forget. We take revenge." His voice was shaking. "That is how I was raised. That is what my father taught me. Be strong, crush the weak, never show mercy." "Did that make you happy?" Lyra asked. Voss did not answer for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "No, it did not." "Then maybe your father was wrong." Voss made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. "My whole life, no one has ever shown me mercy. When I failed, I was punished. When I was weak, I was mocked. I learned that the only way to survive was to be the one doing the punishing and mocking." "I understand," Lyra said softly. "How can you understand? You are kind. You are good. You are nothing like me." "I was afraid," Lyra replied. "I was weak. I let other people hurt me because I thought I deserved it." She paused. "Then someone showed me that I was wrong. Someone showed me kindness when I did not deserve it." Voss looked at her again. This time, there were tears in his eyes. "The humans," he said. "They changed you." "Yes, and maybe they can change you too." Voss was silent. The tears rolled down his scaled cheeks. In his whole life, no one had ever looked at him without fear or hatred. No one had ever offered him kindness after he had caused them pain. "I do not know how to be different," he said. "I do not know how to be good." Lyra stood up and looked down at the Crowdan who had once been her tormentor. "Neither did I," she said. "But I learned, and so can you." She held out her small hand. Voss stared at it for a long time. Then, slowly, carefully, he reached out and took it. It was a beginning. 1 year had passed since the night in the storage room. The Galactic Unity Station looked the same as always, but everything inside had changed. The students walked through the halls with their heads held high. Different species talked and laughed together. The fear that had once filled the air was gone. Today was graduation day. The great assembly hall was decorated with banners from 100 different worlds. Representatives from across the galaxy had come to watch the ceremony. It was the largest graduation in the Academy's history. Lyra stood behind the stage, waiting for her turn to speak. She had been chosen to give the student address. The shy, scared girl who had once been afraid to raise her voice would now speak to thousands. She looked down at her hands. They were no longer shaking. "Are you ready?" She turned to see Tae-ho standing behind her. He was wearing his formal clothes. The medal from the Galactic Youth Council hung around his neck. He still looked uncomfortable with formal events. "I think so," Lyra said. "I am nervous." "You will be fine. You have something important to say." "What if I forget my words?" Tae-ho smiled. It was rare to see him smile. "Then speak from your heart. That is better than any prepared speech." Yuna and Seok appeared beside them. Yuna's long hair was tied back neatly. Seok was bouncing on his feet with excitement. "Can you believe it has been a year?" Seok said. "It feels like yesterday that we were fighting those Crodans." "Please do not remind me," Tae-ho said, touching the scar on his jaw. "I think the scar makes you look distinguished," Yuna said with a teasing smile. "I think it makes me look like someone who got punched in the face." "Same thing." They all laughed, even Tae-ho. The ceremony began. The Academy director gave a long speech about achievement and unity. Officials from different planets spoke about cooperation and peace. Then it was time for the student address. "Please welcome our student speaker, Lyra of the Vellani people." The applause was thunderous as Lyra walked onto the stage. She looked out at the sea of faces. So many species, so many worlds, all watching her. She took a deep breath and began. "1 year ago, I came to this station as the most frightened person you have ever seen. I was small. I was weak. I was alone. And I believed that was all I would ever be." Her voice was clear and strong. It filled the hall. "On my second week here, a group of students decided to make my life miserable. They called me prey. They mocked me. They destroyed the only thing I had from my home, and I thought that was just how the galaxy worked. The strong hurt the weak must accept it." She paused and looked at the audience. "Then something happened that changed my life forever. 3 humans stood up for me. They did not know me. They had nothing to gain from helping me, but when they saw me in danger, they did not hesitate. They fought for me. They bled for me. They were willing to die for me." In the audience, Ambassador Vela was crying silently. She was so proud of her daughter. "I have thought about that night many times," Lyra continued. "I have asked myself, why? Why would they do this? What made them different from everyone else?" She found Tae-ho in the audience. He was sitting between Yuna and Seok, looking at her with quiet pride. "The answer is simple. They believed that protecting others is not a weakness. It is the greatest strength there is. They believe that kindness is not foolish. It is the foundation of everything good in the universe." Lyra's voice grew stronger. "In the year since that night, I have watched this academy transform. I have watched students who were enemies become friends. I have watched bullies learn to be kind. I have watched the weak find their voices. And all of this began because 3 humans showed us a different way to live." She spread her arms wide, taking in the whole audience. "The galaxy has always believed that strength means power, that survival means domination, that the strong must crush the weak to prove their worth. But the humans taught us something else. They taught us that true strength is choosing to lift others up instead of pushing them down. Tears were streaming down her face now, but she did not wipe them away. To my 3 human friends, I want to say thank you. Thank you for standing beside me when no one else would. Thank you for showing me that I was worth protecting. Thank you for teaching me that courage is not about being unafraid. It is about being afraid and standing up anyway. She looked directly at Tae-ho. You changed my life. You changed this academy. And I believe you are changing the galaxy itself. Not through conquest or war, but through something far more powerful. Through love. The applause that followed was deafening. Students stood up from their seats. Even the stern-faced officials were clapping. After the ceremony, there was a celebration. Students and families gathered in the gardens to eat and talk and laugh. The artificial sky showed a beautiful sunset painted in orange and purple. Ambassador Vela made an announcement that surprised everyone. The Galactic Council has approved a new program, she said. The Human Cultural Exchange Expansion. Starting next year, human students will be invited to academies and stations across the galaxy. Dozens of worlds have already requested them. She smiled at Tae-ho, Yuna, and Seok. It seems that the galaxy has realized something important. Humans do not just survive. They make everyone around them want to be better. The celebration continued late into the night, but eventually the crowds thinned. The families returned to their ships. The students went back to their rooms to prepare for their journeys home. Tae-ho slipped away from the noise and found his way to the observation deck. It was quiet there. The real stars shone through the windows, countless points of light scattered across the darkness. He heard soft footsteps behind him. I knew I would find you here, Lyra said. She came to stand beside him. She was so much taller than when they had first met. Or maybe she just stood straighter now. Are you sad? She asked. About leaving? A little. Tae-ho looked at the stars. But I am also happy. I get to see my grandmother again. She must be very proud of you. She always said I had my father's heart. He was quiet for a moment. He died protecting people too. It is the one thing I know about him. Lyra reached out and took his hand. Her small lavender fingers wrapped around his scarred palm. Thank you, she said softly, for standing up for me, for everything. Tae-ho looked at her. That is what family does. Lyra smiled. Then she said a word in her own language. Aethera. What does that mean? It is a Volani word. We do not use it often. It means one who shields without expectation, one who protects because it is right, not because they will gain anything. She squeezed his hand. There is no word for this in most galactic languages. Most species do not have a concept for it. But we Volani do. We just never thought we would see it in another species. Tae-ho thought about this. Is it a good word? It is the best word. Lyra looked up at the stars. Someday, I think every species in the galaxy will learn this word. And they will learn it because of humans. They stood together in silence, watching the stars. The galaxy was vast and old and filled with countless wonders. But in that moment, on that small observation deck, something new was beginning. A new way of thinking, a new way of living, a new understanding of what it meant to be strong. It had started with one small act of kindness, one human who refused to look away, one choice to stand beside someone who had no one else. And from that single moment, everything had changed. The galaxy would never be the same, because now it knew the truth. The greatest power in the universe was not found in weapons or technology or size. It was found in a simple choice, the choice to protect, the choice to stand up, the choice to love. And that was something humans understood better than anyone.